friends. We are back with another edition of the Federalist Radio Hour. I'm your host, Ben Domenech. You can email us, as always, at radio@thefederalist.com. Follow us on Twitter at FDRLST. Today, I'm happy to be joined by someone who can talk to us about one of the most significant and concerning human rights crises happening in the world today. Jewher Illham is on Twitter at Jewher Illham. That's JEWHERILHAM. You can go there and you can find the GoFundMe supporting the work that she's doing as a human rights activist and daughter of a Uyghur scholar who has been going through some incredibly challenging times. Jewher, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you very much for having me today. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, about your family, and about what you're concerned about and focused on today.
My name is Jewher Illham. I am an author and an Uyghur human rights activist. I am currently based in DC. I came to the United States around 7 years ago, not by my choice. It was by an accident. What do I mean by that? I was planning to come to the U.S. for 3 weeks as a vacation trip, also accompanying my father. My father was invited by Indiana University as a visiting scholar at that point. But my father was arrested at the airport, and as a teenager, I appeared to have no threat to the Chinese government, and the officials at the airport allowed me to leave. And my father also pushed me to leave. But since then, I had never seen my father, and since 2017, I haven't even heard the news about my father. Now he's serving a life sentence and as separatism-related charges.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your father. What reason this life sentence came into play?
Mm-hmm. My father was a professor at Beijing's Minzu University. He was an economics professor. He spent decades focusing on doing researches of the social economical topics in the Uyghur region, and he has been teaching it for decades. And he realized that there has been lots of issues in the region between the Han majority people, Han Chinese majorities, and the Uyghur minorities in China. So he wanted to help the government fixing these issues by writing articles, doing researches, traveling all over China, even overseas, try to find solutions. And he also tried to reach out to the government officials to propose some the proposals that he thought that it was helpful. And he also created this website called UyghurBiz.com in order to create a platform for people in China and outside of China to know what is going on and what is the issue there, and to help people understand each other. And my father always believed that all the problems came from not knowing enough of each other. And in China, social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are all banned, and also searching engines like Google is also banned. So the information people get, it's very limited. It's all mainly from state-backed media, which is the CCTV, and that means it's also could be very biased. What you read online inside China and what you hear from the news, it's only one side of the story, and that could create lots of problems. My father wanted to create a platform that both sides of the voices can be heard, but the government considered my father's action as challenging the authorities, but that's not what he was trying to do. And for that, he was charged as someone. The charges was separatism-related charges, and someone who was advocating for violence, which is opposite of who he was. The reason my father has been very well known to the Western world and in China, it's because his moderate voice.
Tell me a little bit about what your reaction was when you found out that this was happening to your father.
To be honest, I had mixed feelings. I was warned before he was arrested. I was warned by my father. He told me that he had the feelings of he might be getting arrested soon, but I didn't want to believe it, and I didn't want it to happen, so I didn't want to believe it. But when it actually happened, I couldn't accept it, because I was always hoping, I still had hopes on the government. And I thought, even though they gave us death threats, they house arrested us multiple times when I was in China, and they threatened my student status multiple times, my brother's status multiple times, I still kept in hope. I didn't think they would go that far, but they did. And when they arrested my father, I still hope that it will be just like every other time. They might release my father after 2 months or 3 months. But then it's been almost 7 years. It's been 6.5 years now. He's still remained in prison, and none of our family members can even visit him. And we don't even know if he has been transferred to another prison or if he has been transferred to a camp.
That was my next question for you. What do you know about the nature of his imprisonment, and in terms of getting any kind of information about where he is that something that's basically just completely closed off to you?
Before 2017, my family members were able to visit him every 3 months. According to the Chinese law, every political prisoner is allowed to be visited by their family members every month. But for my family, it happened to be 3 months. We were never explained why. We were never told why. But all we had to do was accept it. Now the 3-month visiting rights are also taken away. Since 2017, I heard different rumors. I've read things about saying the reason they took the visiting rights away was because my father had won numerous awards, and they wanted to threaten those institutions, those organizations, and say, stop giving Ilham Tohti an award, and also a way to threaten me, to make me shut up, to stop advocating for his release. And I also heard different news. I heard rumors, which I don't want to believe, said that they've tortured my father, and they're afraid if family members were able to visit them, they could get the news out, and I will make a bigger deal about it since I'm in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. When you see the conversation about Uyghur Muslims and about the treatment that they receive in China play out in the American media, what are some of the things that you think are absent from the coverage, that they get wrong, or that they don't fully understand about the situation?
The level of, I think people don't have enough understandings of the level of things Uyghurs are going through. When they see forced labor, they relate to people not getting paid, people just work there. But the actual level is people getting bitten, even bitten to death. And forced labor is not the only thing that is Uyghurs facing. There are different levels of camps, and there are forced labor camps. There are also camps that are just purely to torture you. I personally, for our documentary films, we have interviewed several survivors, and the stories we heard, the testimony we heard, it's unbearable. And they did not work in those forced labor camps. They were just held in a small cell for a few months. Some of them even were raped, and it's not something. I feel like it's a story come out of a movie that happened 200 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 60 years ago. Oh, it's not something that I believe or I think should be happening in modern days.
Mm-hmm. The degree to which information you mentioned is controlled in China means that I'm curious, how many people in China do you believe even know that these camps exist? Is this something that basically is really only known to the outside world?
I believe so. I do know the Chinese government had mentioned about the camps in the CCTV news. But what they call it was re-education center, and most of the Chinese people believed, since that's the only news outlet they have access to in China, they will believe that, yeah, those re-education centers are helping Uyghur people to learn Chinese for free, to learn skills for free, and to stay away from their children for free. And all these people have, I feel like people living inside China had, a lot of them might have lost the ability to or the willingness to dig into the truth because of fear or because of habits.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so sad. I always separate the Chinese Communist Party with the Chinese people, because most of the Chinese citizens are innocent. They have no idea what is going on, but also they have to pay part of the responsibility at the same time, because they stop questioning, and that is not helping the country. I don't think it is helping the development of the country.
In America, it seems like most of the conversation about this started happening when people became more aware of the willingness of American sports league, the NBA, to bow to the demands of China as it relates to not just this issue, but to Hong Kong and many other prominent international media stories. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, when that started to happen, it had to increase the level to which Americans were aware of this. But I think that most Americans would still be hard pressed to explain what's going on in this situation. How do you try to explain it to people who basically just ask you, tell me what's going on?
I've told this story, if not 300 times, or at least 100 times for the past few years. And sadly, every year I had to edit the story, update it in a more severe level. And I just need to tell them that I hope everyone can cherish what they have right now, the freedom they have. The freedom, I don't even want to mention about freedom of expression, just the freedom of being able to communicate with your families, mm-hmm. being able to just reach out to your phone and call your father or your mother. Just appreciate this opportunity. And because this is what most of the Uyghurs don't have inside China. There
was that terrible footage that came out this past about a week and a half ago, the train station. I'm curious, first off, where that came from, what you know about that situation, and then how frequent that is in terms of something that you see across China.
This video, I've never seen it when I was in China. Obviously, it will not be leaked to normal citizens. Also, this video was actually released last year, but it only had gotten attention this past week, which is very sad. Uyghurs activists have tried so hard for the past 3 to 4 years just to try to get attention from the world, and finally we're getting some attention recently. I don't know if I should be happy or be sad about this, but I am glad and not glad those kind of videos are leaked. I'm glad those videos are leaked so people can finally believe what the Uyghur activists have been saying for the past years, and finally we have proof. And it makes me sad that I wish none of this is happening. I wish none of this is happening to anyone. Not only Uyghurs, doesn't have to happen to Chinese, doesn't have to happen to Americans, doesn't have to happen to no matter what religion or what your race is.
I understand that, it may seem a small thing, but the posturing that we hear from a lot of American sports stars who have deals with Nike and deals with other companies that are very dependent on the China market. How does it make you feel when you see the way that they are so outspoken about all types of opinions that they have about America, but that it just goes silent on all of these issues?
I do want to mention few points. There were over 83 brands that were involved in Uyghur forced labors. The parliament member from France, European Parliament members from France, had reached out to a few of the brands and tried to let them stop cooperating with or have suppliers or subcontractors to involved with those Uyghur forced labor. And it's worth mentioning, Adidas and Lacoste agreed, but Nike refused. And I think I didn't like to accuse anyone. I'm not a person that always very judgmental or accuse anyone for anything, but I wanted to say to Nike, shame on you. Mm-hmm. And I really do hope, no matter if you're celebrities or athletes, I really do hope when you represent a brand, please look, what are you representing for? And what are you bringing to the society? Are you bringing positive energy, or do you only care about the money you bring to your own pocket?
Mm-hmm. I am concerned that this is not receiving the level of attention that it ought to from America's political leadership. In recent weeks, there have been more statements on the part of Secretary of State Pompeo and others actively criticizing China over this. Where do you view the leadership in this moment, and what would you like to be hearing from America's leadership about what they want China to do?
I have to say, so far, compared to the entire world, the U.S. has been doing the most on the Uyghur issue. There are still rooms for improvements, for sure. But I do appreciate the gestures like sanctioning U.S. sanctioned 4 Chinese government officials that were involved with the human rights abuse in the Uyghur region. And that is a huge gesture. And I do hope other countries, other government leaders could apply the same strategy to show this is not something that is acceptable to the world. And also, like the passing of the bill a few months ago, it's a great thing. Uyghurs were really, really thrilled and happy. And I do hope there can be bills like this all over the world. And I do hope America can help accepting Uyghur refugees because, of course, it is going to be very difficult for Uyghurs to fly from China to the U.S., but there are Uyghurs in Central Asian countries. Some of them have been deported, like in Turkey, like in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, those countries that are very close to China or have a close relationship with China. Even Egypt had helped deporting Uyghurs from their country back to China. And I do hope U.S. can help accepting refugees from Uyghur refugees from those countries who have fear of their lives or who are afraid to be deported. And it will be very helpful. It will really, really be helpful.
Where does the hatred for the Uyghur population come from within China?
Oh, sorry, I didn't understand this question.
Why do they hate them? Why do they view them as such a quote unquote dangerous menace or something like that?
I don't think Chinese people hate Uyghur people. It's, as I mentioned, the state-backed media, how they portray Uyghurs. It is very extreme. I had times when I was in high school, we were forced to watch news every day for 30 minutes. And the news I watched when I was in my classroom, sometimes it made me feel like, is my people this bad? Because when I visited my hometown, this is not something I see. Every summer I would go back to my hometown to stay for at least 2 months. It's none of those images they post on those news or videos or words they describe the Uyghurs. It's not something that I see or have ever seen.
Just to interrupt, what would they say about your people?
most of the time say Uyghurs are violent extremists, separatists, thieves, non-educated, and what we like to do, we are mostly entertainers. We like to dance and sing. That's all we're good at. So if you search in Chinese, if you search Uyghur people, you will see beautiful Uyghur girls with long hair dancing with colorful clothes, everything, or a picture of a person holding a fire next to a car or something like that. This is all they reveal of us. And if you're only seeing one sort of image, and that will help someone to create a kind of a stereotypical how do I say it, a very narrow image of this person. If I only see you in red every single day for 300 for the entire year, I will think you only wear red.
Yeah.
But in fact, this is not you. You might be wearing some other colors every day, but this is not what the media shows you. This is not what the government tells you.
This scapegoating of Uyghurs seems to have taken on a new heft during the current economic challenges faced within China. Is this an example where they're basically just creating a scapegoat to distract from the real problems that Chinese people have?
Well, I'm not a politician. I'm not an expert on China either. I think there are different reasons why Uyghurs are targeted. There are so many reasons. First, I'll have to mention the geopolitical aspect of the Uyghur region. Let's talk about the size of the Uyghur region. It's 1/6 of Chinese mainland. And what is the population of Uyghurs? According to the Chinese government's media statistic that they had shown of 2010, we had over 11 to 12 million population, which I believe there are way more Uyghurs than that. But let's say it's 11 million. But what is the Chinese population? 1.4 billion. And the 1/6 of the Chinese mainland size could fit in how many people? And China has been using the Uyghur region to solve its overcrowdedness issue. For the past 40 years, the government has encouraged Han Chinese to migrate to the region by encouraging interracial marriage. If you marry to an Uyghur girl, you will get an award for 80,000 yuan. And if you move to this region, you will get housing. Just seeing the increase of the percentage of Han Chinese from 40 years ago to nowadays, it's crazy, it's insane. And also, Uyghur region is well known for the resources like gold, uranium, and natural gas. And this is something all countries are fighting for, right? Mm-hmm. So, and Uyghur region also provide most of the cotton products and fruit products, and agriculture. It contributes in a huge level to Chinese, economically. So this region, this could be a very, very important reason. And second, Uyghurs are different from Han Chinese from all aspects, no matter we're talking about religion, language, culture, even the way we look, mm-hmm. and even the clothes we wear and the food. To be honest, we share almost zero similarities compared to Han Chinese. And that is something I believe the government considered as threatening because we're so different.
What food do Uyghurs eat that's different?
Well, our cuisine, it's different. First of all, we don't eat pork, and mm-hmm. We don't eat Kung Pao chicken or orange, I don't know what it's called in English. We don't eat what we eat. We have specialized Uyghur dishes. It's more closer to Central Asian cuisine, like Uzbek food, which is almost not related to Chinese food at all. We eat kebabs, something like that. And there are Uyghur restaurants in all over America. I don't know which city are you based. I can recommend you later offline. Yes.
When you think about the plight of the Uyghur people, what is the best thing that Americans can be doing to highlight this challenge in ways that will prevent China from engaging in this type of behavior without any kind of pullback. I mean, because I think a lot of people feel relatively powerless to do anything about this situation. What can they do to increase awareness of it and to potentially put China in a spot where they can't get away with all the things they've been doing?
You know, I've been asked about similar questions so many times. What can I do to help? How can I help the cause? I feel so powerless. I hear this so many times. I really want to tell people, don't underestimate your power. Why the government is so afraid of people? Because we're so powerful. Maybe one person's strength is limited, but if we're so many people, if we're millions of people, billions of people are involved, then of course can't we change anything? We can. And I can provide few examples, a few suggestions. First of all, just from yourself, please stop buying products that are made from the 83 brands that I mentioned earlier. Well, now it's 81 since Lacoste and Adidas had agreed to not be involved. And you can write to those companies, and that's how those how Adidas and Lacoste agreed to not be involved, because there were hundreds of letters sent to them to asking them to stop being involved to those massive human rights abuses. And you can do that too. Writing a letter will take you 5 minutes. And if you think, okay, I'm not good at writing, it's okay, find someone who can do it, and then or tell everyone that you know about this cause, because at least one person you know might be able to make a change. If you stop purchasing from this company, they might lose $100. If 10 people, then that's $1,000. And then when it's 1 million people, how much dollars they're losing. And then those companies will reconsider and decide, okay, maybe we should change our strategy. Maybe we should change our behaviors. And that same goes to China. When all those companies start taking back their factories, or transferring their factories to somewhere else, China might think, oh yes, maybe we should change our behavior.
Mm-hmm. There's obviously power in voting with your wallet. Those companies that you talk about are often ones that take very what we call woke stands here in America, but seem to turn silent when it comes to the types of behavior that they have overseas, particularly in China. Is there one company in particular who you think ought to be made an example of in this case, whether that's Nike or another one, that has basically been the most resistant to taking any kind of stand or making any type of change?
I don't think there are any typical one that is the most resistant. I think they're all the same to me. As long as you did not how can I say, as long as you're still involved with forced labor, then you are all the same to me.
Yeah.
That I don't think they make them better or worse. As long as you're still involved in forced labor, then you're all the same to me. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter from which country.
Do you believe that there ought to be consequences legally for American corporations that rely on this type of forced labor?
You mean like they will face negative
consequences in the court system, the Department of Justice here, et cetera? Do you believe that that's something that ought to be pushed by America's politicians, that basically says, if you use forced labor, then you lose your tax breaks, you lose your benefits here?
Well, that is another bill that I wanted to mention. Senator Marco Rubio was trying to pass one of this bill. It's the forced labor bill. And once this forced labor bill is passed, it's going to be helping to put those companies' minds all together to make them well, I hope it could make them or encourage them to behave better.
Mm-hmm. Before I let you go, tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on now. When people go to your Twitter, they can find your GoFundMe. What's that about?
So I've been working on this documentary film. It's called Static and Noise. My production team was involved in this film way earlier than I did. I started as only becoming one of the role of this documentary film. I was supposed to be in the film, but after I've seen how much work and effort they had contributed to this film, I decided to be part of it, and now I'm also contributing all my time into it. So this documentary film is focused on 3 stories, and one of the story which is I am more involved to, it's the Uyghur storyline. There's also storyline of Tiananmen incident, and also there are human rights lawyers. There's one storyline for Chinese human rights lawyers. So as I mentioned, I separate the Chinese government with the Chinese people, no matter which. I separate all the authoritarian regimes to their citizens. I do not hate on anyone. I only hate on regimes that is suppressing people. So this documentary film, it's also helped to shed light on the Uyghur cause and the Chinese, some Chinese citizens that were also abused by their human rights, that were abused by the Chinese government regime. So for the Uyghur story, we have our team was able to fly to China, even to the Uyghur region, to get some footage and interview some people, and they really risked a lot, and they also had traveled to many countries, to Kazakhstan, to Turkey, to Europe, to the United States, to get footage and to get firsthand testimonies from survivors or family members of the survivors. But now we're looking for fundings because it is very expensive to make a film, and that's why I hope people can check it out, and I hope it will be worth your expectation.
Where can people find that?
People can find it through my Instagram or my Twitter. It's called Jewher Illham. It's just my name, JEWHER .ILHAM. It will be. I will have links right on pinned to my top of my page. If you have any questions, feel free to send me messages. I read almost every single message. I might respond really slow because I have tons of things to do, but I do reply to every single questions. And if you want to be part of it, if you want to help, we'll be happy to have you, to work with you, if you are willing to help shedding light on this cause, on no matter Uyghur cause or the human rights lawyers cause or the Tiananmen Square. I'm happy to have you.
Jewher, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today and tell us about this important issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm Ben Domenech. You've been listening to another edition of the Federalist Radio Hour. We'll be back soon with more. Until then, be lovers of freedom and anxious for the fray.